15th, 2021. I'm Michelle Weil, the chair, and let's get started with the roll call. Dave, please call the roll.
Dan?
You're on mute, Dan.
Here.
Jill?
Here.
Len?
Here.
Claire?
Here.
Greg?
Here.
Michelle?
Here.
And I am here also. All council members are present.
Thank you. So normally we start with the Board of Supervisors report, but Lena Silverman, who normally gives that report, is going to be late tonight. So I propose that we reorder the agenda. Another reason that I want to do this is because agenda item 4A, which is the resolution to continue remote meetings. If you'll recall, the previous executive order that allowed us to have remote meetings expired on September 30th. And this new law, which is Assembly Bill 361, was passed in September. In order for us to continue to do remote meetings, we have to adopt this resolution. And so we were advised by County Council to actually make this the first item on the agenda after I had already prepared the agenda. So do I have a motion to reorder the agenda and move item 4A to first and then move back
So
the Board of
moved.
Supervisors report?
I'll second.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So let's start with agenda item 4A. There is a resolution on the MCC website that, the language in that resolution came from County Council. Basically, it says what I was saying before, which is that we would like to, or we feel that having in-person meetings would be present an imminent risk to the health and safety of attendees of the meeting. And this is kind of standard language that most of the countywide and even local city offices, boards have adopted. And so in order to do this, we actually need to adopt this resolution now for the initial adoption, and then once every 30 days for us to continue to have online meetings. And I just wanted to have this as a regular agenda item tonight because I know there's some discussion about potentially having hybrid meetings, which we can definitely continue to do so even if we adopt this resolution. But what this allows us to do is continue to have the majority of the council join remotely. So, one or two people could, I believe, still have be present in a meeting room. But this, yeah, basically, I think that that's the rule, although we need to check into that for sure. Dave, it looks like you have a question.
Not a question, no, just ready to
Or
speak
comment.
when you're done. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so hopefully everyone has had a chance to review this. It does need to pass just by a majority of vote for us to continue to have online meetings and to continue our meeting tonight. So that's why it should be first. All right, well, we'll go around to members of the council for comments or thoughts. Dave, starting with you.
Yeah, I would like us to start hybrid meetings, and I certainly will be present in the GCSB meeting if we agree to do that. We do have the equipment in hand, and PCTV is prepared to do their portion of it. But I don't know if we actually need a motion for that or we just need a straw poll for that.
Yeah, I think for that we could probably do a straw poll to just gauge interest, and then we should go back and check with County Council's office just on the the legal aspects of doing that. If we are saying that having in-person meetings are a risk to the health and safety of attendees.
I thought you said that was part of what he told you, that once we adopt.
No, I didn't. I was speaking because I knew that there was some interest from Dave and potentially other members of the council for that, but that I didn't know. That's not what he told me.
Okay. We'll just go around, or?
Yeah. If anyone wants to raise their hand, go ahead, or I'll just go around.
Well,
I
I agree with Dave's sentiments in the sense that I'm supportive of doing it. open to coming some of the time, but I would like to see us understand what that capability looks like.
Yep. Craig?
So my concern is, and this relates to the minutes, which Dave knows about, 6 months after the second dose, the Pfizer efficacy against infection had fallen to 42% in the Mayo Clinic study. And that's the reason I'm asking the minutes to be corrected for that one item. Dave handled everything else. That's pretty low, and that explains in part the national push to get booster shots. The problem I have personally is that my wife can't take a booster shot because she's immunocompromised and her immune system would overreact and exacerbate MS and Parkinson's. So even after I have my booster shot, the possibility that I can asymptomatically transmit the disease to her is going to keep me in remote. I'm disappointed, and I wrote the governor and the board of supervisors and everybody about this, and I wrote an article about this. They didn't just do a clean job and authorize virtual meetings, period, because of all the obvious benefits. So I view that as a major disappointment at the state level. But that being said, I endorse this resolution. I'm disappointed we have to do it every 30 days.
Okay, thank you for that. Claire?
I'm not really sure what I'm commenting on. I'm fine with doing remote meetings. I'm not sure. I'm just not sure what we're talking about. Are we wanting to have hybrid meetings? Are we trying to decide what they would look like if we had them? What are we doing?
This agenda item is about the resolution to continue remote meetings, online meetings. So that's pretty much the subject of this conversation. However, I think it can be fairly extended to the, if we're debating whether to do online meetings or not, some members may feel that they, would prefer to do a hybrid meeting. So that's just, I guess kind of falls under this topic, I would say.
Yeah, I would have to hear more about what would make a hybrid meeting worth the extra technical gyrations that would go into it. I'm happy with remote meetings. I think that, I don't know if we can go on like this forever, but we don't know going into the winter what's going to happen. I don't want to get back into another one of these cycles of increased problems. And I really do think the meetings are better remote than they are in person. So I'm fine with what we're doing tonight.
Okay, thanks, Claire. Dan?
I think I agree with Greg and Claire. I think that there should be a fact sheet or something written down as far as if there was a hybrid meeting proposal, exactly how that would look like, and so I'm in favor of continuing the virtual meetings. That's all.
Thank you. And Jill?
Yes, I agree with Greg. I would like to continue virtual meetings and not meet in person at this time.
Can I ask for clarification from both Dan and Jill? Are you opposed to anybody hosting a hybrid meeting, or are you just not going to do it yourself?
This is Dan. So I like to learn more about what that would entail and what unknown ramifications would be.
Well, we discussed it in detail 2 meetings now.
Yeah, I'm not sure, Dave. I'd have to think on that. I mean, I don't really see an issue if someone else wants to do a hybrid. But I wouldn't want to meet in person right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing to prevent informally Dave and Len from being in the same room. I think at a location. I guess it's the question of whether like they would want members of the public to join them there. Like I said, we'd have to run that by county council just to see if that's still okay if we adopt this resolution. Yeah, for me personally, just to weigh in, I don't want to meet in person. I have 2 unvaccinated kids, one who's only 1, so she's not even going to be eligible when this next round of vaccinations becomes available for children 5 and up. So I also do not feel comfortable having an in-person meeting at this time. Len, I see you have your hand raised again.
Yes, just to amplify the point, because the way the comments come up, it still leaves me unclear. Dave and I are saying we're quite happy to host the online portion of a hybrid meeting. I think it's important to do in part just to understand what that looks like for the dynamic standpoint. So therefore, as long as people are not saying they don't want us to have a hybrid meeting, but they want everything to be virtual, which is, I don't think, the basis of this resolution. If I understood it, then I'm fine to go ahead. But what I understand you to say, Michelle, is you're not completely clear what council's position is.
No, because I didn't ask about that specifically. I asked about if we wanted to continue under AB 361 to continue to do the online portion, the online meeting, what we would have to do that, and it's adopt this resolution. And just to be clear, this can continue as long as there is still a state of emergency issued by the governor. That's what AB 361 allows, and that's what Greg was referring to, where he wished it would have just been a little more clear, where we didn't have to adopt this resolution. There were basically two requirements that AB 61 said that needed to happen to continue online meetings. One was that there's a state of emergency declared by the governor, which still is in place and is ongoing, and there's no predetermined end date for that. Second is that there needs to be social distancing in place in the community, either issued by an order by the governor or by the local jurisdiction, or alternatively to that social distancing being in place, which is not currently in place. We have mask requirements, but we don't have social distancing in place. Alternative to that, or as an alternative to that, we could adopt this resolution saying that we think it would be present an imminent risk to the health or safety of attendees to have an in-person meeting. So
to summarize that, if we go ahead and adopt this resolution, then we're good to continue with our online meetings. You can get a clarification to council and bring it to the next meeting that says, if we wish to go ahead with a hybrid form of the meeting, either that's okay as is, we don't have to do more except decide when to have it, or if there are additional requirements, we can address it at that time.
That's correct. Yes. What we're adopting right now, this resolution does not allow us to do does not mean that we're going to do hybrid meetings. What it means is we're going to continue to meet in the same way we have with online virtual meetings for at least the next 30 days. And we can actually pull this back at any time, but we do have to renew it every 30 days to continue to do these online meetings. And it'll be on our agenda every other meeting, essentially.
Basically the first meeting of every month.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly. So that's what we'll be voting on. Let me listen to Claire, and then if any members of the public would like to speak on this, we can hear from them as well. Go ahead, Claire.
My experience with hybrid meetings has been that the people that are actually running the meeting, that are the main focus of the meeting, are there with the electronic stuff. They're the ones that are there live, and attendees who are zoomed in are the ones that are remote. In this case, the people running the meeting, like Michelle, would be remote, and it seems a little bit weird to have attendees in a non-remote setting. I would have to think this through and see how it would actually look. It's not what I'm used to.
I'm not sure why it would matter whether the chair was there or not for a hybrid meeting.
Yeah.
Well, what would be the point of where you and Dave are? I mean, you and Len.
So that people who did want to attend in person can.
But they would be attending and watching everything happen online.
Yeah, but they
Nothing
wouldn't
would
have to have
happen.
they wouldn't have to have their own internet. There are people on the coast who have very, very poor internet at home. And there may be some people who prefer to be in person. We won't know until we try.
But they won't be interacting with anything better at the location, except the argument that maybe they have bad internet connection makes some
Well,
sense.
could also be the case that 10 or 15 people would like to be there in person together.
Yeah. could
But
be.
then the person running the meeting is not there, so that kind of is a
They
little
could be
strange.
there or not there either way. It doesn't make a difference.
In this case, they
They'll,
won't,
they'll still be visible on a monitor. So
but they won't see the interaction of the people that are
sure they
actually.
will. Of course, they'll see the interaction. There'll be a monitor there.
Oh. And the monitor will be concentrated on the group of people in the room.
It'll be just like what you're seeing on your screen right now.
Each individual person that's at the El Granada facility will be showing up on the screen.
No, they'd be in a group.
There'd be one camera showing the people in the room.
Okay.
Sort of like our old style recordings.
You'd have to manage who's speaking when and all that kind of thing,
Yeah.
Same way.
which would be hard for a chair who isn't there.
But
I just consider.
this is why we're asking to do it. I think we find out by at least trying a meeting.
Yeah, I think in the long run, we absolutely are going to have hybrid meetings. And the chair may or may not be there in person, especially if as long as the chair is Michelle, which would not be the case after December 10th, presumably. She's definitely not going to be in the room, and you may or may not be. I don't know.
I may not be.
But I'm already the one who's running the meeting, so I don't. I'm sorry, running the meeting in the technical sense, not in the chair.
Freudian slip there.
Sorry.
Freudian slip.
No, it was a true statement. I just didn't get the rest of the words out.
Okay, so let's hear from the public and then let's go back. I do also want to do a straw poll before we vote in terms of the hybrid meeting concept. But do any of members of the public want to speak on this topic? If so, please go ahead and raise your hand now. The way to do that is by clicking the reactions button at the bottom of your computer and then clicking raise hand. If you can't find it there, sometimes it's under the participants tab. If you're dialing in from a cell phone, a phone number or a landline, I guess, then you dial *9. And if you're calling from a mobile app, the Zoom app, then it would be under the More tab. I see Anne. Go ahead and unmute yourself, and if you'd like, state your full name, and then you have up to 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, thank you. It's Ann Rothman, and I was just going to say I really appreciate the remote meetings that you've been able to have, and I would love to see them continue into the future. I feel much safer being able to take the meetings from home, and more importantly, I've been able to take it when I'm in other locations, which is really very beneficial for me. It gives me the opportunity to participate where I would not be able to if I was in person. Also, like you say, I don't want to, even though I'm vaccinated, I don't want to potentially bring COVID to someone who had, like you, who has children at home unvaccinated, and anybody who could be immunocompromised. I would feel horrible if something happened. So the option to stay remote for me is a great benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Does anyone else want to speak from the public? Sheena, I see you have your hand raised. Is that for this topic?
Yes, can I actually just would like to add 2 cents that
Definitely.
I too have a child, which is the concern about vaccination. She's not vaccinated, COVID exposure, and childcare. And keeping this remote does allow me to participate in your community meetings a lot more. I don't live in the area, so I wouldn't probably be able to attend as frequently So that's another added benefit on top of the obvious health benefits to keeping remote or hybrid fashion.
Great, thank you, Sheena. Okay, last call for members of the public to speak on this topic. Okay, we'll go back to the council. Dan, I see you still have your hand raised.
Yes, I agree with some of the concerns that Claire brought up. I think that there's a potential of having, divided meetings. I think that'll be difficult to control. That some things can be communicated within a separate meeting that's muted, and the rest of the council wouldn't be able to hear. I mean, I'm just saying it's potential. I'm not saying it's going to happen, and I'm certain that every effort would be to avoid that. But it's just a concern. It's a potential problem that should be kind of looked in. I think we should kind of take it easy, think about it, and not rush into anything.
Okay, thank you for that. So yeah, I would like just quick round the rest of the council. I would say I just want to do a straw poll on whether you would like to do hybrid meetings in the near future. Probably not the next meeting because there's some things we would need to figure out. But I would like either a yes, a no, or a not sure. Want to
And
wait
to be
and
clear,
figure things out. Yes.
And to be clear, at least for me, I want to know whether you're opposed to hybrid meetings as opposed
Yeah.
to whether you would be there in person yourself.
This is not about whether you would be there. We know that Dave and Len are the only ones that said that they would be there. So would you want them to even happen? So it sounds, let me just go around.
Just
Greg?
keep it around.
I'm happy to allow others to be in person and have a hybrid meeting. I do not oppose them.
Okay. Jill?
I'm fine with somebody else being in a hybrid meeting, and I don't want to be in that hybrid meeting.
Mm-hmm. Claire?
I think for the reasons that I brought up about how to manage the communication within the meeting, I would be opposed to it.
Okay, and Dan, you said you're not sure yet. You want to wait?
Yeah, for now, I'm opposed. I'm open to thinking about it.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like
I have a comment too.
Open. Okay, go ahead. Len.
I'm for the ability to have hybrid meetings a little bit on the opposite side of the way Claire expressed it. I still believe that in the long run, in a perfect world where COVID or some other virus does not exist, the downhill path is to have all live meetings. And for us on the coast, 25 miles from our seat of government, et cetera, we get much better participation from county officials here. And many people find it convenience to have that option, even as we move to a healthy environment. So I think it's important for us to basically work through the issues. And whereas Claire is saying, I'm sort of concerned to look at it, this is exactly the time to work with it, to understand how we can make it work, because I think it's important in the long run to have the ability to have hybrid meetings.
Is that accurately depict representing what you were saying, Claire?
It's the other side of the coin. I think if I understood what Len said, if we're working from the default of we're having live meetings, let's see if we can add this remote feature. Yeah, I agree with him.
Yeah.
If we're working from the default of we're having remote meetings, let's see if we can add this other feature, then I don't agree.
I think that's expressing it wrongly, but we're sort of splitting hairs there.
Well, we're in
what you're saying though is that she would be object to having a hybrid meeting, period, at this point.
Well, if we were all at the place in El Granada or wherever we're going to be, and there were some other people that wanted to Zoom in, like a minority of people, so that they could get the experience of what we're talking about. I think that would be an added dimension to our old meetings. That would have been a great thing to add.
I believe we
We're
get
not
much
there
better. We get much better participation from county officials. Sheena's statement is a good example.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree with that. If
So,
we ever do go back to having all live meetings, I think we should include this feature.
Mhm.
But that's not, I don't think that's what the question is right now.
No, because that's not the situation
the
we're in
strong
right
poll
now.
question was to speak to it.
Okay, well, my feeling is I'm a little torn on this. I mean, I'm not opposed to managing it as long as I'm the chair for the next 2 months. But I guess I just feel like it's a little hypocritical to say that we think it's unsafe to have in-person meetings and then to have people in person at meetings. So that's my only concern with the hybrid meeting concept at this point in time. But I absolutely think that going forward, if we ever have to return in person, because the executive order ends or we as a council do not have a majority to pass this resolution, then I think we should continue to offer the ability for people to participate remotely forever.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I will say that I don't like the wording of the resolution that the county has gone legalese on us. And I've seen other bodies, I've forwarded some of the other bodies to Michelle, some of the other bodies' wording of the resolutions to Michelle that are much less extreme than this. And I agree that with the current wording, it is somewhat hypocritical, but with wording that is still compliant with AB 361, it's not. So I do think it's worth asking Michelle to go back to county council and say, we do want to have hybrid meetings. What wording does not say in the resolution that we're endangering people by doing so?
I think that the
AB 361.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, AB 361 explicitly says that you have to say that it's an imminent risk to the health and safety.
But it
So
doesn't
that's why.
say, but it doesn't say it's an imminent health risk to everybody. So that, I personally associate with enough people in person. I just had dinner at India Beach last night with 20 other people in the room. So I'm not worried about having an in-person meeting.
Hope you had Moderna.
I did have Moderna as it happens.
Me too.
But I was lucky.
Yeah.
But people with the booster are probably in a similar position, and I know quite a few people who've had the booster. Anyway, I am not trying to make light of anybody else's concerns or personal situations. I'm just saying this is something where people have a wide diversity of opinions, and so I am obviously very much in favor of having hybrid meetings and finding out early how well it works and doesn't work. And so with that, I think I've said my piece enough times. I will make a motion that we approve resolution 2021-01 as written.
Do we have a second?
Second,
Okay, let's take a roll call vote.
Okay. Dan?
Yes.
Dan? Jill?
Yes.
Len?
yes,
Claire?
Yes,
Greg?
Yes,
Michelle?
Yes.
And I'm also yes, so it's approved 7-0.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry. I somehow got a cold for my daughter who goes to daycare. So it's not COVID, but yeah, sorry. So I'm going to move on to the next item. Lena's still not here, and she did provide a written report for, sorry. She provided a written report, which I have already posted on the website hopefully she'll be able to join later. But I do see we have Harvey Ryback here from the city of Half Moon Bay, and rather than making him wait any longer, I want to go to the board to see the reports from other government officials. So I'll turn it over to Harvey.
Thanks, Michelle. I appreciate that. I just have two quick updates. Um, uh, we're glad that we finally got the funding to complete Carter Park. It's going to be over a $5 million project. It's going to have a wonderful amphitheater. There's going to be space for productions. They're going to be restrooms. It's really going to be a community facility that will enhance the whole coast side. So we're really glad that we got the bulk of the funding from Senator Becker. We threw in a few $100,000 at the end, and construction is going to start soon. So that's a real boon for the coast side. The other update I have is that we had our second study session on building electrification to reduce greenhouse gases from Half Moon Bay. The whole council contributed to changes on the proposed draft ordinance, which will be coming back in November for a first reading. You are encouraged to go to the city website to see what the city of Half Moon Bay is proposing. It, in many ways, is bleeding edge, especially about what we're calling burnout ordinances, so that if you have natural gas appliances and they stop working or you want to replace them, there's going to be a time scale for how you have to replace them with all electric appliances. I think this is a really good thing. There's a lot of controversy about that, and you're encouraged to come to the November first reading of the ordinance to give your input. But I'm encouraged that Half Moon Bay is taking the lead in trying to reduce greenhouse gas emission from buildings, which contributes about half of the total greenhouse gases that the city emits. That's my updates. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Thanks, Harvey. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question. Harvey, when is the construction going to be completed at Carter Park?
Sometime in 2022. It's going to start soon. The end of permitting is going on right now. And once that happens, we have the construction manager funded, and it'll, like I said, probably be finished by the time that the end of summer festival will occur in 2022. It had to be canceled this year because of COVID, which is a shame, but I fully expect that in 2022, we're going to have a really nice festival there.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks. Any other questions for Harvey?
Yes, I have
Dan?
one. Yes. Harvey, you mentioned that half of the greenhouse emissions are emitted from household ranges, gas water heaters, gas dryers. Did I understand that correctly? Is that?
Yeah, both from residential and commercial buildings.
Okay, that's interesting. Is that substantiated on the Half Moon Bay City website somewhere, or just
Yeah.
curious?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll look into that. And it's my understanding that there's a lot of other emissions that aren't talked about as far as the whole livestock industry and such. There's good and bad livestock industry practices, I guess, from what I hear. So I'm interested in this, and I will look into it more and probably have a personal conversation with you just to learn more. Thank you.
Okay. Sure. Just for the record, the other major contributor to greenhouse gases is transportation, mostly cars in San Mateo County. So between transportation and buildings, that's the bulk of the emissions.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Harry, I see Anne has a question.
Hi, thank you. My question for Harvey, I wanted to know when you're talking about the conversion, you're mainly talking about cooking, but what about the heating for people, particularly myself? I'm in Moss Beach. This does not pertain to me at the moment, but it will in the future potentially. Are you asking the homeowners to convert to electric heat? Because this is very costly for people. So I just wanted to know, what are you going to do for your residents? Thank you.
Sure. If you have a gas-fired furnace, and assuming the resolution passes, there will be a time scale, probably in 2025, that if your gas-fired furnace fails and you need to replace it, the ordinance would require you to use an all-electric appliance. And nowadays, that means a heat pump, not resistance electric heating, if you can get away with it. Heat pump furnace or heating is definitely more efficient than just about anything else. Also, as a side effect, if you want air conditioning, that sort of comes with the package. So yeah, not just hot water heater, which also you can get a heat pump hot water heater, and I don't deny that it's expensive. It is initially. We're exploring lots of ways that we can finance doing that and give rebates. Um, so it's not going to be cheap, but in order to help the planet, we need to do whatever we can. So we will try to use equity to make sure that low-income people can replace their gas-fired appliances, but it's going to require sacrifice on some people, but it's for the good of the planet.
Thanks, Harvey. I will note, I was just looking into this recently, and it looks like Peninsula Clean Energy does have some rebates currently in place to replace your your gas-powered water heater with an electric heat pump water heater. But there are some requirements, you needed to have like 100 cubic feet of space, or no, it was like 1,000 cubic feet of space around your water heaters, which is, I think, difficult for a lot of people. They'd have to rearrange things. I also wanted to ask you, because you mentioned transportation, and I know that the city of Half Moon Bay does have a few electric car chargers, like at the library and a couple other places downtown. Are there any plans to install more electric car chargers in Half Moon Bay?
Well, as part of the REACH codes that we're talking about, all new construction is going to be required to have EV chargers as part of the construction. So all the new construction will include new EV chargers. That's one thing. We have a couple at City Hall. There's some at the New Leaf parking lot. Yeah.
No current plans to install more public electric car chargers?
Not that I'm aware of, but if there is a need, I'm sure we will work with Peninsula Clean Energy to install more.
Yeah, just thinking about all the tourists that come over. Okay. Any other questions for Harvey? Okay, thank you, Harvey, for being here.
Sure, thank you.
I did get a message from Lena that she'll be about another 15 minutes or so. So I'm going to move on to the next item and we'll go back to her when she arrives. So next we'll do public comment and announcements. This would be comments on any items not on tonight's agenda. So not on redistricting or the quarterly newsletter. If you have any comments, please raise your hand. This could also be announcements for members of the council. We do have the opportunity at the end about council activity, but if anyone wants to make any announcements right now, we can do that. Sheena, yeah, great. Thanks for raising your hand. Do you want to go ahead?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm not on mute. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm here to just provide a quick update on the El Granada scoping project that RCD is working on with everybody in partnership, including MCC. So the RFP was distributed, just for a recap, in September, and we had a virtual meeting with consultants that could come and do like a virtual walk of the neighborhood together so they could see what El Granada is about. We had 7 consultants attend that virtual meeting, and then two consultants submitted proposals as of last Friday, which was the deadline, 5 p.m. Briefly, both proposals look really great. Both proposal consultants have good experience doing this type of work. I think there's going to be some nice nuances that we can pick the best one. I think we have a good, even though it's just a pool of 2, I think it's a good pool to choose from. And so all the partners on this project had an opportunity to look at the proposals this week. And tomorrow at 11 a.m., we're going to be meeting representatives from each of the partners. So that includes MCC, the county, RCD, county parks, Supervisor Horst's office, Liam will be attending, and we'll be scoring the consultants and selecting one. And with that, the RCD will be recommending it to the RCD board, who has the final authorization to select the consultant, and then we can finalize the contract and get started on work at the beginning of November. So that's the game plan going forward.
Great, thanks for that update. Does anyone have a question for Sheena? Len, go ahead.
And you're on mute.
Thank you, Sheena. So from our agenda standpoint, at our next meeting, the second meeting in October, you'll be able to tell us who was selected. And by the time we get to our first meeting in November, we would expect to hear something substantive in terms of plans developing.
Yes. Yep, that's the plan. I should have mentioned that, and thank you for bringing that up. I'll be here at the next meeting and just sticking around to provide updates. And then we'll also make the plan about how we can make sure that we're getting adequate engagement, because I know that's something that everybody's been talking about a lot. So with the MCC representatives, we can talk about how that should shape up once we've selected the consultant, we have the plan, and how that's going to look, because I know that's very important to the community.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? No? Okay. Thank you, Sheena. Let's go on. I don't see any other hands raised for public comment or announcements. One last call for that. All right, we'll move on to the next item, which is the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda tonight: the minutes from the meeting of August 11th and the one from September 22nd. Do I have a motion?
Move to accept.
Okay. I think
Greg had something.
Yeah, I wanted to
Greg.
pull the minutes. I wanted to pull the minutes that had that Pfizer percentage in it. Was that August, Dave?
Yes, August 11th.
I wanted to pull those and have the percentage on Pfizer corrected from
So
72
you
to
can pull the
42%.
minutes. You could pull the minutes and put them on the regular agenda and we can talk about it. Or if it's just a minor correction, we can just make that change now. But is there some, I'm not clear on what the actual correction is.
We need to actually pull it from consent, and then I think it's a very simple change. We can do it as the first regular agenda item
Okay.
if you want.
Okay. I thought with minor corrections in the past, as long as it's not controversial, we just make that change.
Technically, we can't under consent.
Okay, that's fine. So that's August 11th. So the only thing on consent would be the minutes from September 22nd. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second,
Okay, in a second. All right, let's vote on that. Dave, please call the roll.
Dan,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Len,
yes,
Claire,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
and I'm also yes, passes. That is 3B, passes unanimously.
Okay. On to the regular agenda. First item on the regular agenda is the minutes for August 11th. Greg, you had a proposed change?
Yeah, I wanted to change the percentage reported in the minutes for the Pfizer efficacy from 72% to 42%, which was the actual number. I sent Dave material to that effect, and I believe that's what was said at the meeting, since I said it.
Okay. Do we need to vote on that change, Dave, or no?
Yeah, I think we do.
We do. We do. Okay.
Also move.
Second,
Okay. Let's vote on that change. Dave, please call the roll.
Right. Dan,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Len,
yes,
Claire,
I think we're voting to say this is what was said at the meeting rather than this is the truth.
yes.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Not that I think it's not.
No, but you're absolutely right to draw that distinction. Greg,
yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
and I'm also yes, so the amendment passes unanimously.
Okay.
And
Since
it's
this is
adopted
on the
as
regular
amended.
agenda, I think we need to ask for any public comment.
That's, we should have
Give
done
that
before
about
we
3
voted, but
seconds.
yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was on the amendment. Yeah, but okay. On the actual minute.
My mistake, I should have reminded you.
Okay, now let's vote on the minutes. As amended.
We just did.
I thought we were voting on the change.
Yeah, that
But
was,
you said we had,
that was to approve the minutes as amended. So,
oh, okay, so we didn't have to vote on the amendment.
no. Because
Okay.
it wasn't. an
Oh, I
actual
thought that's
motion.
what you said.
No,
Okay,
sorry.
we should be more clear on the motions that we're voting on. But I think the outcome would have been the same. So let's move on. All right, on to item 4B, which is the San Mateo County redistricting letter. I'm going to hand this over to Dave and Greg to present this. I guess Dave will be the one to kick it off.
Yeah. So this grew out of some comments at an MWSD meeting, but I think there were other comments in other places. I apologize for the letter going up on the website very late. I did mail it to the council members this afternoon. If anybody wants me to do so, I can display it. But basically, what this letter is asking is that the redistricting commission keep at a minimum the Midcoast and one supervisorial district, and preferably the entire San Mateo coast side, at least from Montero south to the Santa Cruz County line.
Okay. Any clarifying questions from the council on this? Greg? Go ahead.
My question is why the draft that I put together and Michelle had edited was so substantially modified without presentation here. I know Dave had given us his version. I thought we were going to present both versions so people could see and choose. But Michelle, if you will endorse this, I want to understand why we're going with this shorter version.
I would have been happy to put yours up on the website. I never saw anything from you on anything to post.
Yeah, and I didn't
was-
weigh in on the different versions. I mean, beyond what you saw.
If you want to propose an alternate version, we can do that. We don't have a motion on the table yet.
Was there a
Yeah,
second?
well, you know how big. Yeah, well, there was, but you know how big a fan I am of editing documents in a meeting like this. If Michelle thought it was okay the way it was, then I'm going to yield to her seniority and go with the version that we've got. It's not like it doesn't cover the same topic. I just don't think it's forceful enough in pointing out all the reasons why integrated management and supervision of the Midcoast is essential. I would also add a comment, though. I did have the thought, you know, if they split us into 3 different supervisors, then 3 different supervisors would have to listen to us. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I just think it would be a horrible mess for us to have to try and educate and convince 3 supervisors when the treatment of the area logically from transportation and infrastructure and environmental point of view needs to be treated holistically. So I just had stronger words and an extra couple of paragraphs than what Dave has put together. I'm not suggesting a change.
Just to clarify, so the strongest recommendation was to keep the unincorporated Midcoast under 1 supervisor. As a second point was to extend it to the Santa Cruz County line, which would be different than saying at a minimum include the city of Half Moon Bay, let's say down to Highway 84.
Yeah, I felt that the entire unincorporated coast, when I wrote this letter, and I think the discussion at the MWSD meeting as well, was that the unincorporated coast as a whole, including Half Moon Bay, that's what makes the wording so awkward. It's really it's the unincorporated San Mateo coast plus the city of Half Moon Bay that we're talking about. It gets sort of.
So that's our strong recommendation is unincorporated plus Half Moon Bay, therefore not Pacifica.
I am neutral on Pacifica. Yes.
We discussed Pacifica.
Yeah, there were other opinions on that.
Okay.
Claire, go ahead.
I just checked my email and the agenda, and I don't see your letter, Dave. I must have, I don't know what happened to it. I don't see it. Is it easy for you to put up?
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. Okay, you should be seeing it now.
Yeah, I see it.
Did anybody else on the council get it in their email?
I just went to the website. I didn't even look for it there.
I got it in my email. It looks like you sent it at 3 o'clock today to Midcoast Community Council at Gmail, which is the distribution list.
Yeah, 302. And it is in the Midcoast Community Council Gmail account.
Michelle, can I make a comment?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so I do have concerns with this letter. I think that all of the coast side, including Pacifica, I don't like the idea of the district being divided. I think Pacifica should be included, and so I don't like the writing in the letter, specifically stating from Montera South. So that's my position. I think that all the coast side and Pacifica share common concerns, and I'm uncomfortable with it being divided.
If you'd like, you could make an emotion to amend it to say Pacifica instead of Montera.
Before I do that, I'd like to hear some comments from the other council members.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we should also make a motion to approve the letter first before we make amendments. Yeah, I don't think we've heard from Jill. Do you want to go ahead, Jill?
Well, I wonder if that sentence can just be San Mateo coast side and take out the defining it from Montera to Santa Cruz.
Well, are you including Daly City then?
I would just give a generic San Mateo coast side.
No, but that's the point.
What's the
You have to balance the district population somehow, and Daly City is a very large population.
Is that considered coast side, Daly City?
It's on the coast.
Yeah, seems like it's on coastal bluffs.
I struggle with the wording, and I will say, and Michelle and Greg have heard this letter reads somewhat clumsily, even to me, because we edited it multiple times. So I will not be upset if somebody picks apart wording or wants to clarify something in here.
So I feel that keeping the mid-coast on south is far more important than whether or not we're combined with the city of Pacifica as well or not.
Well, I disagree with that.
I understand. That's why we're talking.
I mean, do you think that the area like Davenport have the same interests, more in common with us than Pacifica?
They're in Santa Cruz County.
Exactly.
Oh,
But Pescadero,
Pescadero is a further
La Honda, San Gregorio.
Yeah, I initially amended it to say Pacifica because I actually felt that Pacifica should be part of, part of the same district, and it is currently. And part of our argument is to say that we prefer the existing or the map that it has the small, I forget the name of the map, but the one that has very minimal changes compared to the map, the existing district, and that does include Pacifica, everything from Pacifica down to the county line.
So I'd like to be able to communicate to some leaders in Pacifica to feel to get a feel for their concerns on this issue as well. I think it would be helpful for all the council members to be aware of general ideas from people in Pacifica, not necessarily the city council members only, but the general ideas from people who live in Pacifica, leaders.
Well, they may not want us, but we may want them. So we have to see what we want. And I don't know why they wouldn't want us.
Well, it's they're part of the coast side. I think we should at least have some give them a chance to kind of offer some opinions.
So
I'm-
Dan, the redistricting commission has to be done by the first week of December. So all the decisions are being made in the next couple of weeks, next 2 to 4 weeks. So if we delay until our second meeting, then by the time the redistricting commission gets it, they're probably going to have already decided.
I still think that we should have some information on opinions from people from Pacifica.
Okay.
And if we have to rush it on the next meeting, then so be it.
No, what he's saying is we'd have to have a special meeting for it to have effect.
Whatever it takes. Lance.
Okay. No, I understand. I just want to make it clear to people that that's what we have to do if we want to be effective.
I'm not opposed to a special meeting on this item. I think it needs to be done right.
Everybody will comment on it. No.
Yeah, let's continue to go around. I see Greg has his hand raised.
Well, as you know, my draft had Pacifica in there, but two things can be true at the same time. Pacifica is currently with us, and I'm in strong connection with a lot of people in Pacifica, but they are, as Dave pointed out to me, somewhat different than Half Moon Bay. And as Michelle's just pointed out, the unincorporated area in Pescadero and La Honda has a lot more in common with us than Pacifica does. The redistricting commission is going to have to make a decision based on their population issues. If we had to choose, it would make more sense, I think, to include Pescadero and La Honda. If we could have both, that'd be great, but I don't know what the population metrics will allow.
Do you want to throw up these maps that we're talking about, Dave? I mean, the existing map as well as the
Yeah,
The
I
proposed
I
maps.
will find that right now. I had it up earlier and now I've lost it. So let me just get that while everybody's talking.
yeah, because I think it would be helpful to see. I'm not sure if you've all had a chance to take a look at these maps. They're available on the redistricting committee website, but there are 5 or 6 different maps. So most of them do have us lumped together with Half Moon Bay, many also with Pacifica in the area all the way south. But the map that we're especially concerned about is one that basically divides the districts. You can't see my hand this whole time, but divides the districts more like, horizontally across the San Mateo County map. And so it just splits it. One even actually splits the Midcoast. So the area we represent would be 2. I think it's 2, but then like Half Moon Bay would be a 3rd. I think it is. So it's very split. And it's really worthwhile, I think, seeing these proposed maps. I'm not sure if anyone here had a chance to attend the meeting. It was last Thursday. That was the latest meeting by the redistricting committee. I wasn't able to attend. I don't think anyone did, but
There it is.
I think it's important that we weigh in.
So this is the minimal change map.
I don't think this is the
And,
minimal change. This is
well,
the
sorry,
different
I
one.
may have brought up the wrong one.
This one shows us with Daly City.
Yeah, this is a coast map. This is the one that basically says the whole coast is together.
Which isn't terrible.
Right.
I clicked on the wrong one. So yes,
Here it is.
this is the minimal change one.
And if you scroll down, it talks about, it shows the different populations for each of the 5 districts.
Right.
And it needs to be split almost, pretty evenly. I don't know where they're going to end up exactly, but
Right. And then I want to show the one that's really bad.
mhm.
This is the one that splits us really quite a bit.
That's pretty rich.
Yeah, so
So
Montero
it has
would be a
Pacific and
zone.
Montero in one, Moss Beach, El Granada, Half Moon Bay in another, and the rest of the unincorporated coast in another.
Is that like Princeton in that little green area between El Granada and Moss Beach?
Yes,
Or is that the
that was,
harbor?
that, yes, absolutely. Princeton would then be in.
Where's
in
Pillar
the-
Or
Ridge?
is it just the
the
boats on the
unincorporated
harbor?
coast.
Yeah.
It's actually
Yeah,
part
that
of
would be
Princeton,
really
not
good.
all of it. It's the part that's not in the proposed visitor serving portion.
Does this have any support?
These are all from Douglas Johnson. And for those of you who don't know, who didn't sit through the 2010 redistricting, Douglas Johnson was the numbers guy who had every possible statistic at his fingertips on balancing populations in various different ways, politically, culturally, ethnically, racially, way they voted, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Most of these draft maps that have been submitted are Douglas Johnson's maps. And he's not saying that he favors any one of these so far. He's just putting them out there as proposals. And anybody can draw their own proposed map as well.
Yeah, you can actually go to the website and make comments on the map. And we should all do that if we feel it's important.
The Harbor District, I refresh my memory on the Harbor Districting. I think they have horizontal lines that just run across the county, don't they?
Sort of, from what I remember, yes. But they'll have to redistrict for 2020 as well, from the 2020 census as well. So who knows what they'll redistrict to.
But there is a precedent for somebody doing something like that.
Absolutely.
Okay. We haven't had a motion to approve the letter.
Yeah, we have.
No,
Oh, we
nobody's
have.
moved anything yet.
Okay. I'll move we approve the letter.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. I'm going to go to members of the public now for their input on this letter. I see that Maureen Fleming has her hand raised. Go ahead. Maureen, you're on mute.
Yes,
There you
yes.
go.
Okay. My only comment, what does I'm looking at the letter, NDC, what does that stand for? That's in the letter a few times.
Oh, it's what Douglas called his maps.
Does the abbreviation, I just think we should spell out what it stands for, because it must
Well,
be.
I don't know what it stands for. It's just what he called the map. So here are, sorry, I'm trying to find the maps. Draft maps, here we go. So I hope I'm still sharing this. So draft maps listed by map number with link. So these are the 7 maps that have been submitted so far. And these are just what they're called.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I'm going to go on to Anne, who has her head raised.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my only comment was, I guess, similar to the others. If it's at all possible to include Pacifica, I think that it would be nice if to keep the entire coast as one body as opposed to separating it, if it's at all possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And do any of other members of public want to speak on this topic?
Anne has her hand up.
She just spoke. Okay, I'm going to close public comment on this topic. now. So we do have a motion on the table to approve the letter. I'd actually like to propose an amendment to change the word of Montera to Pacifica. Does anyone want to second that?
I'll second that.
State specifically the change.
The word Montera changed to Pacifica. Maureen Fleming, I see you have your hand raised. Do you want to comment on this amendment?
I just wanted to
Okay.
mention, I just looked it up, that NDC stands for National Demographics Corporation.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay,
So are you sure that's what it stands for in that name?
well, it's right below it. It shows San Mateo County as NDC's 100th. I don't know how it's going on here, but
Okay.
yeah, 100th districting or redistricting client in the post 2010 census cycle. So it's that corporation that is putting these together.
I guess, well, the question to you, Michelle, so if we leave it as from Pacifica South, period, and I think well, from the comments, there's a differentiation that we feel from Montera South is absolutely needed, and Pacifica is nice and even supported, but we certainly don't want to have anything less than from Montera South. So that's.
Is that a question or just a comment?
I guess, well, you've put it in as an absolute, and we can either vote to have that or leave it as it is now, or a combination. So let's just go with your suggestion first.
Okay. I will note that we do have Lena joining us now, and she actually had something that she wanted to say about this.
Great.
Just a comment she wanted to make. Go ahead, Lena.
Thanks, Michelle. And I will preface this with saying that I'm in no way endorsing this map or saying that you should like the horizontal map. I'm not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of it. But just from my understanding of why some people have expressed interest in that side, that kind of map, is each supervisor gets district discretionary funds, which are funds that they are much easier able to access. And Supervisor Horsley's district, District 3, right now has a huge swath of unincorporated area. So our district discretionary funds have a lot of places they could go, because we have a lot of places that aren't in cities that don't have that city's financial support. So part of the thought for separating the coast in that way, again, not saying that I support it, is that one, each part of the coast would have more access to those district discretionary funds. For instance, like we never work with Atherton. Atherton is in District 3, but they have a city. They don't need our help. And then other districts don't have really any unincorporated area. They're fully cities, like District 1. And so they have a lot more freedom with their district discretionary, but they also in some ways have less need for their district discretionary. So it's having more attention to these unincorporated areas that in reality need a lot more attention and deserve a lot more attention than areas in cities that already have it. Just want to throw that out there. That's it. Thank you.
So that's an argument in favor of the 3 different sections. Is that what you're saying? But just so we understand what it is. No,
exactly right. Right, exactly. That's exactly it. And I mean, but who knows if they split it that way, and to the counterpoint, if people then paid less attention to the coast. I can't say that would happen. I mean, it's just that's one side of the coin.
Each supervisor still has about the same number of people, so it makes it even less likely that discretionary money would go to the coast, in my opinion.
Okay, thanks, Lena. Appreciate that. We hadn't thought about it that way, I don't think. I see Fran Pollard has her hand raised. I'll go back quickly to her. I'll go to her. Go ahead, Fran.
Hi, yeah, I agree. I think probably include Pacifica. And it should be the whole coast side, I would think. The whole unincorporated coast side from Pacifica down, well, depending on the population, they'll have to figure that out and divide it up equally. Each district has to have the same amount of population. So, yeah, I worked on this 10 years ago when they did it. So it came out and we like this idea that the whole coast be one district. And I think it includes Woodside and, you know, whatever other rural areas to create enough population. So I would go with that to Pacifica. I guess if that doesn't jump the population too much, but that's it. Oh, and by the way, I saw a typo in the in the letter. Have to separate area in or in area. Second line, I think it was. Need a space between the words. That's it.
Yes, I see that. Thank you. Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. All right, I'm going to close public comment on this now. So we just have a few members of the council that need to weigh in. We need to vote on the amendment and then vote on the letter if there are not any other amendments. Go ahead, Jill.
So Lena gave me some good food for thought, and I have two questions. Was it ever in the past horizontal instead of just having one supervisor for the whole coast side? And the second question is, I wonder if there was more than one supervisor in charge of coast areas, they might approach issues differently and they could learn from each other what works and what doesn't work, you know. And those are my two questions.
So the answer is no. 2010 was the first time we ever had supervisorial districts in San Mateo County. We were the last of the 58 counties to go to per district supervisors.
Oh, wow.
Lena, do you think that if it was horizontal, the supervisors, you know, each one having a different portion of the coast might put different ideas into action to solve issues, or no?
It's okay if I answer. Thanks. Great question. I mean, I guess I'm uncomfortable with saying that it would change because kind of what I'm going off of is in 2010 it was proposed and ultimately decided against for the best interest of the coast. So my assumption would be to stick with status quo. However, I don't know, like I really don't know. I have been wondering about it too, because if you have the coast side, I mean, we spend 80% of our time dealing with either the coast side or the Woodside Mountains because it's the unincorporated area. So in my mind, as a ledge aide, I think, well, then the ledge aides would spend more time with those areas because they're the areas that need it. But then again, if you're thinking about elections and populations, pay grade, and I just don't know. I just don't know if they would pander more to the Bay side because there's more people.
Thanks, Lena.
Yeah, I think it's hard to tell. Claire?
Well, the way I look at it is that we want to become as much of a focus for somebody as possible. And I do think that Greg's more or less tongue-in-cheek comment about maybe 3 people could listen to us, obviously is going to end up with nobody listening to us. But I'm definitely in favor of including Pacifica in our request. I mean, we can ask for anything we want. They can decide what they're going to do, but we can ask for whatever we want. So let's ask for Pacifica. I would not actually be opposed to that one where the entire coast, including Daly City, is in one district. That would give us more population. so that we're not lumped in with Menlo Park or someplace like that. And it would be more focused on what actually is happening on the coast. I'm also thinking that as I sit here and think about who has declared that they want to represent this district, none of them live on the coast per se. If we did the Daly City to Santa Cruz thing, I think that would eliminate all three of our candidates, which is neither here nor there, but it's interesting. Which tells me that we really might benefit from somebody whose real focus was the coast. But I would definitely include Pacifica, and I might include, say, the entire coast, which would imply Daly City.
Thanks for that, Claire. Dave, did any of the maps have, they did, oh yeah, the coastside map did have everything from Daly City down.
Yeah, it did.
I see there's another public hand raised, but I closed public comment on this item for now. You can go ahead and type any thoughts in the chat and we'll all see them. I do want to move on to the vote, at least on the amendment. So the motion on the table is to change the word Montera to Pacifica. Dave, could you please call the roll?
Okay, to be clear, this is a vote on the amendment, not on the motion. Dan?
Yes.
Jill?
You're on mute, Jill.
Yes.
Lynn?
Lynn, are you there? You're on mute too.
Yes.
Claire?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
And I'm no, so the amendment passes 6-1, Dave opposed.
Okay. Any other last comments on this before we vote on the letter as amended? Claire? Go ahead.
Unmute.
Sorry, I can't see the letter. Is there anything in the letter that would preclude my saying I would be happy with the entire coast included?
No, there's nothing that precludes that. I mean, I
Okay,
didn't say exclude X, Y, Z or anything like that.
okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions before we vote? All right, let's go to a vote on the letter as amended.
All right, Claire?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Dan? Dan?
Sorry, yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Michelle?
Yes.
And I'm also a yes. The letter passed as amended, passes 7-0.
Great. Thank you. So I know we're jumping around a lot here tonight, but since Lena has joined us, I would like to get her report, the Board of Supervisors report, if she's ready for that.
Absolutely. And thank you, Michelle, for being so flexible and moving the schedule around. I really appreciate it. And
No problem. Thank you for attending.
no, yeah, and you pointed out, you motivated me. You were like, you've got perfect attendance so far. I was like, I can't mess that. So thank you for having. Yeah, thank you. I have very few things to be proud of, so I'll be proud of that. But thank you. I don't have too many updates, so it's kind of a letdown anyways. But my big exciting update is for the past months, we've had the multimodal trail stall because of the maintenance agreement. We now have written commitment from the District 4 director of Caltrans that they will no longer stall that project. They're expediting out the review and signature. She is committed to it being signatured and agreed upon. So it's just them going through their expedited process, but we're moving through with that. I won't do a redistricting update because you guys just really covered that in full, but thank you for that. And then with COVID-19, I won't go into the exact numbers, but I will say there's been some talk about the mask mandate and the end of the requiring for masking. To clarify, that hasn't happened. They've just come out with what the criteria will be. I'm happy to go over it if you think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to just give an overview, I think it'd be helpful.
Okay, great. Thank you. So basically we need to be in that moderate yellow tier. If you go back to when we were thinking about those tiers. So the same tier that it was before. Some of the criteria to me seem a little bit interpretable. So another one that I was told was that the hospitalizations need to be low and stable. But I don't know if there's an exact number for that. If there is, I haven't heard it. And then also 80% of the jurisdiction has to be fully vaccinated. We already passed that. Or all those things, or 8 weeks have passed since the COVID-19 vaccine has been authorized for emergency use by federal and state authorities for ages 5 to 11. I think that goes to review later in the month, like the 26th of the month. So we'll see how that goes, but the mask mandate has not been lifted yet. And to clarify, when this happens, if it happens, businesses still very much can keep their mask restrictions if they would like. And also there are still state restrictions that will stay in place. So for hospitals and some other public areas that this would not affect, those would still stay with mask mandates. And then I will include in the chat some of the COVID vaccine mass vaccination sites that have been up and running. They're also doing the booster shots. So I know a lot of us are now becoming eligible for our boosters. So once I'm finished with this, I'll put that in the chat. And I think for today, oh, and also I was asked to talk about the El Granada Median project. So I was able to give me an update today. It's been extended just slightly because there's been a little bit of a delay with the removing the lumber. And I think that he said there's a few more trees left to trim. So they're thinking that project will continue for about 2 to 4 more weeks. And that I think is all my updates. And I am more than happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Linda, for that. I see a couple hands raised already, so I'll go to Len first.
Yes, one more note in Qua's communication. He noted also that he said a few property owners have been seeking the same tree removal service from the contractor, and notes that all private property work that they should contract the contractor directly. And once he's completely done with them, they'll be available to do work private parties might ask for. Second, just before our last meeting, I reached out to Supervisor Horsley together with Dave, who asked for a conference because we felt that both in some comments that Qua has made relative to GCSD and what they might do, as well as from Supervisor Horsley, that there may not be a clear understanding of the reluctance of GCSD to get involved. And I think there's important things that you might be able to influence. So we're reaching out to have a meeting soon with Supervisor Horsley. That's Dave and myself.
Okay, that's great. I mean, I think you're totally right. And that sounds like a really valuable meeting for us to have. So the supervisor is about to go on a short vacation, and I'll get in contact with you and Dave about scheduling that.
Is that like right away? So it will be when he comes back, or could we squeeze it in tomorrow or Friday?
He leaves. He's leaving tomorrow, but he'll be back in less than a week. So
okay.
It won't take too long.
Thank you.
Okay, and then Greg.
The booster shot schedule, I think, goes out through October 17th, which is this week. I was wondering if you know when we're going to have additional scheduled booster shot drive-throughs or does that depend on the allocation, the comment you were making later in your report?
Right, good question. My understanding is that we don't really have a supply issue right now. I don't think that that's a huge concern. I think that they're planning to continue them. They just haven't released those dates. And I'll make sure to let you know as soon as they've set those out.
Okay, any other questions for Lena? Lynn, you have your hand raised again?
I was trying to
Sorry.
lower it. Lower.
Okay, I think we already did. Okay. All right, thank you so much, Lena, for joining. As Michelle
Thank you, and I'll
Jorgensen
never be
said,
late
worth the
again, I
wait.
promise.
Oh,
I
yeah.
promise.
No worries. We're just glad to have you. I think that, so let's move on to item 4C in the regular agenda, which is the MCC quarterly newsletter. So this would be, I believe, our 4th edition of the newsletter. Did we do? Yeah, I think we did a winter, and then we were gonna do a spring, but it actually became the summer. We're trying to do this every quarter. It's been about 3 months since we sent the last one, so at this point we're looking at like a 4-month gap between newsletters. But I do want to get on this regular cadence of sending these every quarter. So it's pretty much the same drill this time. We just need to go over the topics that we want to include. And I have a few ideas based on the things that we've been talking about in recent meetings, as well as just the timeline and schedule. So the topics that I have listed out are, one is the El Granada Medians project that we just discussed. So just an update on how that went, since that should be pretty much completed by the time the newsletter comes out. And just looking at the timing, I'm looking at about a month timeline between now and the date that the newsletter comes out. So we decide on what the content is going to be today. We have about 2 weeks before the draft content is due. We split that up among the different members. Usually we have about 4 or 5 pieces of content. So for each person can do one, or, sometimes people do 2 items. Then we go to the editor. She's been Jill, assuming she wants to continue doing that. She can edit the items. Then I'm the technical person who kind of sets it all up, and then we send it off for translation. That takes about a week, and then we send it out. So this would be looking at a timeline to send the newsletter about November 11th. Would want to get it out before we get into the holidays, because no one pays attention from basically Thanksgiving to Christmas. So and people's inboxes are flooded with emails. So I think getting it out by then would be good. So that's why we're talking about it at this meeting. So the El Granada scoping project would be the second thing I had on the list. Potentially an item on vaccines and booster shots, with some guidance into where to go for that. We've had a couple updates on Highway 1. So I just put a maybe there, if there's anything specific we want to bring. I don't think we have an update right now on the Virginia Street crosswalk, but if anything comes together on that, it would be good to talk about that. And then I just posted an item to the blog on our website, which I was going to talk to about in council activity, about a meeting that we had with Caltrans about a couple other updates. These are very long-term projects, so it's going to be a long time before anything happens on those. But anyway, just Highway 1 is like a placeholder for other types of content. And then I did have one other idea, which I wanted to throw out there as a potential piece of content for the newsletter, which would be a logo contest. And this is something I've mentioned in the past. As we've redone our website, one of the main things, or one of the needs that we have is really to have like a logo for the website. We do have a placeholder in there as a very old logo that was created. I'm not even sure where it came from. I think maybe Lisa. And it's okay, but it's just, I think it was just kind of thrown together. It wasn't really intended to be a logo. And so as we rolled out this new version of the website, it would be nice to have like a recognizable logo that we'd put in there. And so my idea for this edition of the newsletter would be just to do a contest and put it out there to members of the community, where they could create a little logo. and submit it to us. And then once we receive all the submissions, we can we could either assign like a group of 3 of us or bring it to a council meeting for a vote to approve a new logo. So those are the ideas that I have. I see Greg's put something in the chat. I want to go around. Definitely anyone's free to add anything they would like as ideas. And then I think we should decide tonight on about 5 items that we would have in this edition of the newsletter. Greg, do you want to mention your ideas?
Well, I think there's several things happening on wildfire, and Len knows better than I do, but you're aware Susan Casey and her work with the Coastside Fire Protection District and the code change they've made. And then we've already talked about the other items. The Caltrans has done some of the clearing we asked for, whether it was because of us or somebody else, I don't know. They haven't cleared the tunnel, and that's still a risk. There's lots going on at SAM. You're aware of the BOD, the biological or biochemical oxygen demand issue, and the $1 to $2 million in extra costs. I have in my hands the 3 requests for summary judgment from the 3 parties to the lawsuit. I'll be writing about that tomorrow. That's interesting reading. Montera is going to have a rate increase coming, but it's not known yet how much it is, and I don't think we're going to know by November 11th, but they're going to be meeting on it, I think, at the next meeting, and it usually has a process which requires citizens to vote and so forth through December, but there is something coming. I'm probably forgetting something else too, but I don't know if you want to cover issues about SAM, or is that Sam to speak about? But we are affected.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we did say about the newsletter, and we received this guidance from County Council as well, is to keep it factual and focused on things that we've covered in our meetings up to date. So I know we did have one item about SAM in our one meeting about that, but I think we want to keep this like, these are definitely not opinion articles. And not to say that what you want to say is an opinion, but it should be something we covered in the meeting and more related to the progress that we've made. So I wouldn't really want to comment on the lawsuit. I agree with some of these other things though, the Caltrans clearing in Montera. I mean, we didn't really do that ourselves. We could potentially have, I mean, I like the idea of having a wildfire topic and then having subtopics. That's actually what we did for the last newsletter in the summer. So we could potentially have like a main topic of wildfire and a few subtopics under that.
Do you view it as topical? I'm sorry. Do you view it as topical that they've come up with this non-domestic waste water control program at SAM? They've reactivated that. That's just factual.
Well, I don't know so much about it because we haven't really covered it in our meetings. I mean, we could certainly have an agenda item about that, but it's, I guess the criteria I would say we should be like things that we've covered in meetings and things that are factual. But, well, open to hearing other thoughts on that too. Let's go to Len.
I'm interested in doing one on wildfire, but to take the particular angle of meet the consultant. By the time the newsletter comes out, the consultant will be identified, chosen, and they're a new party. So I think it'll both address the overall scope of it a bit, but focus on who is the consultant and a little bit of information there.
That's going to be a little tough because the timeline, I mean, I guess, it's possible. The timeline, I mean, I do think the scoping project should be in the newsletter and that could be part of it. I have the draft content due date as October 29th.
Yeah, I think there's time to do it, assuming that the RCD is on board with that. So,
okay, well, we could include that.
I'll explore it and run it by you.
Are there any other topics?
Closing out the medium project. I mean, I think it's a good idea to have something separate that closes out the medium project because I think there's some interesting learning and things there as well as a separate topic.
Okay. Does anyone else want to add anything? Any thoughts on the newsletter, the logo contest idea? Anything else related to this from members of the council first?
When are we going to know about the redistricting decision?
I think it gets approved by the Board of Supervisors by December. The final maps have to be approved by a certain date. Lena's giving me a thumbs up, so I don't know the exact date, but I'm not in time for the newsletter. I mean, it could be a topic that we mention and say that we wrote a letter on it.
I'm
I'm also
attempting
looking
to
for.
look,
Go ahead.
I'm trying to look at the website to see what else we've talked about lately. And I guess I haven't explored the website well enough, but I don't see the old archives tab. Where do we find
It's
what
been
we've talked
moved.
about?
It's
Where is
been
it now?
moved. It's under, if you go into the front of it, you'll find it there. It's actually done really pretty well.
I think it's under the MCC tab,
Oh, okay, okay, thank you.
meetings archive.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of organized now by year.
It works well.
Yeah, I also keep just a little Google document for myself on what we have at each meeting, and that's other things we've had on the agenda recently were the letter, like in September, we had the letter supporting the county coordinator grant with the fire grant, a wildfire update. We talked about hybrid meetings. Lynn gave an update on the Virginia Street crosswalk. We also had the Moss Beach Highway 1 grant letter that Shonda presented and we voted on. Keith Mangold presented. We had the Medians project. The scoping, going back even before that, scoping project, drought. You know, it's been a lot of wildfire, a lot of talk about hybrid meetings, Miramar access issue. And yeah, that kind of goes back since the last newsletter came out in July. So I also want to get volunteers for these different topics. And Jill, can you confirm you're still available to be the editor?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Would it be helpful if I presented, if I shared my screen with this timeline? And topics, and we can just assign them. I just didn't put these under, these can either be part of wildfire or they can just be separate. So Len, you said you were interested in doing the scoping project.
Yes.
Then what about the medians project?
If nobody else does it, I could take that on as well. But it's a separate item.
Okay, does anyone else want to take on these other items?
I can do the fire code changes and, you know, I know some stuff about Highway 1 and vaccines and boosters, but I don't want to monopolize it.
Yeah, I mean, Highway 1, I don't know that we have clear direction on what we want to put on there. Everything's sort of moving really slowly. So do it just an update on kind of all the items. There was that shop project. There are the 2 new items that I posted to the website. There's also Virginia Street. We can give an update on that, or we can just leave it out.
I think it'd be best to wait for the next one, and then we're looking to have Connect the Coast side ready to come forward. So
Yeah, that's true. Okay. And then I did see like an export door post recently, and we did report in one of our previous newsletters about the Meadow Creek Bridge, and now it's been delayed. So we could potentially do just like a short item on that delay to notify people.
I could do that.
Okay.
not there.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
So the medians project, vaccines and boosters. If everyone's on board with the logo contest, I would write something up on that.
Actually, Michelle, on the medians project, I might more generically call that eucalyptus removal and talk about the work they've done on Highway 1 and other highways.
That work on Highway 1 was in Half Moon Bay though, right?
Well, it impacted us quite a bit here, and at the Medio Creek, it had real impact, and that's in our area, the Medio Creek removal.
It did, but what are we gonna say about that?
Well, I think you're just talking about, you can take the angle of removing eucalyptus on a broad scale and then look at some of the particulars that are takeaways.
I think Caltrans also has been removing some trees from the bypass lands in Montera, so you could include that.
Yeah, I mean, that's more the generic label is eucalyptus removal.
Okay.
I'll take a crack at it from that side and review it. Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Does anyone want to write about vaccines and the booster shots?
I'm happy to do it. I mean, Lena's given us all the material.
Yeah, it's pretty much just compiling that into a short article. Okay. Okay, let's go with this then. So here's the timeline. I'll send it out via email. So we'll have it. So first content due by the 29th. That gives Jill like a weekend basically. Hopefully that works. Like we can extend this if it needs to edit, to do the review. And then I'd set it up and submit it for translation on November 3rd. And goal to send that out on November 11th. All right, let's try to be on time this time. Okay, I didn't see any public comment on this item. If anyone wants to, they can speak now. Or we will move on to council activity. Okay, let's do this. I have a couple items I can start with council activity. So one is that Caltrans thing I mentioned, which I posted a blog post on the website. I actually put it as, you have to scroll down a bit because I wanted to keep this meeting as the top of the agenda, the first item on the website. And so basically I had to change the date to move the Caltrans project post back, even though I just posted it. But what we basically had a meeting. So Len and I both met with people from Caltrans, and I think it was good that they actually reached out and they had us, and then they had a few other people, including Chris Lynn from the Chamber of Commerce on to get so it was a stakeholder discussion about two projects that are coming up. One is this multi-asset roadway rehab project, which includes everything from Wavecrest Road in Half Moon Bay all the way to Marine Boulevard in Moss Beach. And so this is a very comprehensive project. And there's a link to both the fact sheet, like a one pager on a website, as well as this full PowerPoint that had the full discussion and the explanation and maps of the area that they're considering. It would include rehabbing the existing pavement, upgrading the traffic transportation management systems, signal upgrades, TOS elements, drainage, complete streets elements like curb ramps, crosswalks, bike paths, and sidewalks. So this is a big project. It's going out over several years. You know, it's just starting. So the draft environmental document will come out like early next year. Construction would, assuming everything moves on schedule, construction would start in 2024 and complete in 2026. But it was good that they did reach out to us early and talk to us about this project. We'll hear more about that coming up. And then the second project actually is something I think we've been talking about for a little while at least, which is a safety barrier project for the area from Montera at 2nd Street all the way north to almost to past Graywell Cove and almost to the tunnels. And so this would be new concrete barrier, retaining walls, guardrail, and signs to keep people from going off the roads, essentially, up there. So all that documentation is on the site now. Lynn, did you have your hand raised about that? Did you want to add something about that? Okay.
The point I want to emphasize to the council is first to reiterate what Michelle said, that this was a very different and quite informative meeting, well in advance of the project's actually starting. And there was really good communication there. But even more important, they have environmental report deadlines that come up next spring. And what we've learned going all the way back to our first safety and mobility studies is Caltrans projects are a long, long process. But if you have particular things that you're interested in, you better get it in when they're doing the environmental review, which is only a few months away. You can't show up at the last minute, so to speak, a year ahead of time and say, oh, what about this? So one of the things I've emphasized is the problems of a satisfactory bike lanes at Medio Creek because of the barriers and other things going on there. There's 2 or 3 things like that, but I think those are important things for us to bring up in the winter. And we shouldn't, even though we talk about implementation in 24 or 25, that the time for the council to have an important say is right now, and from now till the spring.
Michelle, can I make a comment?
Sure.
Yeah, so I have pretty big concerns with all this infrastructure changes that we're talking about right now. And I think that we should have an agenda item with what we know, not just these quick, brief comments. And I think we should have a question answer session as far as what we've learned. Michelle, you and Lena were in a meeting, or just to be able to share in more detail and allow for questions and answers from not only the council but not only the council but the community.
Yeah, and I think Caltrans is going to be having some of those public meetings. I'm not opposed to having it on our meetings, but we want to make sure that we get feedback to them at the appropriate time.
Well, as Len said, the earlier the better. So I'd really rather not wait for any, permission from Caltrans. I think we need to start talking about it as a community.
Yeah. Len, based on your experience working with Caltrans, what do you think the appropriate format would be for that?
In what I said, I was trying to speak to the point that Dan raised. That is, let's say the environmental documents are trying to bring final versions in March. So it's important for us prior to that. That means January and February to look at it. We're also expecting that the long-awaited Connect the Coast Side final version to look at will come in the same time period. So I'm expecting that in January and February, those two have a certain overlap and that they do merit real serious public meetings. Caltrans has sort of exposed their major points so we know what's there, and we need Connect the Coast Side. So I'm supporting it, and really it's January and February, I think, is the window for that.
Okay, yeah, looking back, I did the timeline that I mentioned, that was for the project, the roadway rehab project, but actually the barriers project has a quicker timeline with the draft environmental document circulating in December and the final environmental document by March, with design and permitting complete in August 2023, initiating construction in January of 2024 and completed in 2025. So given that, do you still think January after we've seen the draft environmental document, or do you think it would be?
I think they're two separate activities. I think sort of fast tracking that first one you mentioned, which is near term, to see And we should talk to Caltrans about that.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Well, why don't you, Len, talk to Caltrans, involve Dan? And what would be great is if one of them could come and speak or present the project and get feedback at a future meeting. We could do that at like the November meeting, perhaps.
Okay, I'll check on it.
Would this include the sign system that they wanted to put up? Remember that they spoke
No.
to?
That's-
That's not part of the medians project. Well, there's two different things. So the sign project, that's different from this. That's already moving forward. There are signage components in the one of these two projects, the one that involves the area from Half Moon Bay all the way to Marine Avenue in Moss Beach. So there are components of signage. I think the medians, or sorry, the other project, with the barriers, that doesn't include any signage. Well, it does include small white and yellow warning signs
No.
upgraded to standard, but nothing of the sort that you're talking about with the big
No.
lighted signs.
I believe what Greg was asking about is now an element that's going to be incorporated into the overall shop project, at least as far as the area it covers, which is up to Marine Boulevard. That's a component of that project.
Yeah, the signs are a component of that project.
I think the agenda
Okay.
should really include, you know, kind of a review of everything that's coming up. Or at least ability to review and then also be able to speak on it.
Okay, so why don't Len and Dan work on that together offline, and then yeah, we're kind of getting into future agendas here, and then come back to me with a proposal.
Okay.
Okay, the other item I wanted to update people on is a conversation that Claire and I initiated, and Claire and I had some conversations about this. We've talked about it before, but the vaccine rates that are being reported for the Midcoast, specifically for Moss Beach and El Granada, are extremely low. And we continue to question it. It's like 50% in Moss Beach, it says. And then it's like 60, I think just low 60s for El Granada, which is kind of crazy because then it says Montera is 97% and Half Moon Bay is like 91% vaccinated. And that's vaccinations age 12 and over. You know, we have questioned it multiple times. I kept hearing from county health, oh, it's probably just a data problem. It has something to do with PO boxes, but not a lot of specification. And they continue to report the the low numbers. And then I saw a report on a local news program that propagated that story, basically, that people on the coast side just aren't as interested in getting vaccinated. They're independent. And I really, was upset by that. And so I reached out to the county, and we actually got a meeting with county health this week, which Claire and I attended. And it was really interesting because they showed us some maps and they showed us where they get their data from. And it turns out, it seems like there are a couple of really major issues with the data. One is that in the area of Moss Beach, they were only including the part of Moss Beach, like around the post office and east and west of the highway there. They weren't including Seal Cove or Pillar Ridge in Moss Beach in terms of the numerator, basically. And then the denominator included supposedly Moss Beach, what the census said. There's basically just discrepancies in the data. So what it seems like is that they were not including all these vaccinations that happened in anyone for any of the hundreds of people that live in Seal Cove or Pillar Ridge. They just weren't getting counted toward Moss Beach. They were getting counted toward this unincorporated number, lumped in with everyone else on the site. So, or in the county. So that was one problem. Similar issue for El Granada in terms of the area. They weren't including Princeton in El Granada. And then there's also this post office issue where, because El Granada shares the same zip code with the city of Half Moon Bay, if someone just put a zip code, a PO box with a zip code, that was potentially getting counted toward Half Moon Bay and not toward El Granada. So we didn't completely solve the problem, but I think what we're leaning toward is while we're working on, actually, we're going to have a follow-up meeting where we look at the actual areas and say, okay, this belongs in Moss Beach, this belongs in El Granada, count this toward this. In the meantime, they're going to stop reporting on those individual towns on the Midcoast and report like one Midcoast number that includes everything, basically from Miramar to Montera in our area. And so what that will do is it'll be more accurate because it'll show more of an average number for our whole area. And then we're going to work to solve this data problem and hopefully get some real accurate numbers for these individual towns. And at the same time, it's still not 100, no matter how you slice it, it's not 100%. So there are still definitely some communities that are not being reached. So we're going to work with the equity person on San Mateo County Health to try to reach some of these people who have not decided, who haven't been able for whatever reason to get a vaccine, and have some potentially pop-up clinics. I know there is a clinic that's happening actually every week now at Coastside Hope in El Granada on Fridays, I believe it is. And we'll post about that on our website, and that's continuing to happen. So we definitely want to make sure that if people need to get vaccines, they can go there, and then try to, continue to reach the additional people that haven't gotten them.
Where does Pillar Ridge's data go?
Unincorporated, I think. So there's 6,000 people on the county health website that are unincorporated vaccinated. I think everyone in Silk Cove and Pillar Ridge and probably Princeton is going toward that and not towards this individual towns. I see that was your hand, Lynn.
Oh, that just got it.
Okay, so that's my report. Any other council activity to be reported?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So I sent out a letter to council members. Tomorrow is a presentation by One Shoreline on sea level rise and coastal erosion for the coast. It's there. This will be about the 6th in the series, so it's an important thing to listen to. And also, I sent notes on if you want to put questions in advance where you can send it. I raised the issue with One Shoreline when we finished the Medio Creek Bridge for the coastal trail issue. We made note of the fact we expected that it was important to identify a path for a future instance when the new bridge, which hasn't been built yet, is there. But the identifying where it would go is something that needs to be done years and years in advance. And so I've asked One Shoreline if that's something they would take up, and they said it would be. So I think it's not necessarily before the end of the year, but it's a kind of activity we want to see them address sooner rather than later. And they accepted that point.
Okay. Greg?
There are several things I could speak to briefly. While we have a much improved website, some of you are aware that I produced, I'll call them specs, which would have broadened the scope of the website to things like issue tracking and management, shared document development, polls and surveys, things I don't expect us to want to tackle now. But I don't want us to forget that in a modern institution, the use of the website for more than just static reporting is kind of common practice. And we should think about that going forward. Separately, I think I already mentioned that the lawsuit for SAM is proceeding. There's millions of dollars at stake. Numbers range from 4 to 6, and we would be on the hook for half of that. All 3 parties have filed summary judgment requests, meaning we don't need a trial, just rule in our favor. So I'll write that up, but it won't be part of my MCC activity, but I will post it because it does have community impact. I also asked Sam and Montera about the $1 to $2 million that has been spent, let's call it on a surprise basis. I won't use the word wasted yet, because of the problems at the sewer plant. And something that I don't see happening in the SAM board meetings is a consideration of how we get that money back. I raised this also at the Montera meeting, and Dave was there, and they basically, if I understood what they were saying properly, Dave, you can correct me. They said, well, we just got agreed on solving the problem. We don't want to raise issues of trying to figure out how we get our money back. But, you know, on behalf of the ratepayers, I mean, I think it's at least $1 million down the tubes. And that's not something I don't think we should just sit back and ignore. And then finally, there is a statewide initiative petition coming up. You will hear about one way or the other for the 2022 election to essentially reinstate local control in the definition of things like housing, population density, et cetera. So I just think everybody should be aware that that dialogue or debate is going to get heated. I think the passage of SB 9 and 10 has caused controversy, at least in the circles I run in. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other council activity? All right, I don't see anything. Let's move on to future agendas. So a number of items were mentioned here. And what I do have confirmed for the next agenda are a Coastside Recovery Initiative. This is a project that Half Moon Bay is sponsoring. Claire and I actually met with the people who are running it, and they want to come present their whole process and the projects that they've decided to move forward on at our next meeting. So I think that'll be really interesting. We'll have them, and then we'll have Sheena back to talk about the El Granada scoping project. I know there are a number of other things that people want to bring forward for either that meeting or the next meeting. And then I'll just remind you that typically as we enter the end of the year, the second meeting in November and the second meeting in December conflict with Thanksgiving and Christmas. So we would ordinarily just plan on having one meeting in each of those months. We could always add in a special meeting. We did that last year with one special meeting. The meeting, and also I just note that the meeting in December will have the election of the new officers. So, you know, as we enter the end of the year, I want to really think about what are the priorities, what do we want to have, what do we get accomplished, what do we want to have completed by the end of the year. So ideas for the next couple agendas, Dave?
The other thing we need to start scheduling is the retreat. We ended up pushing it way out last year because we didn't start scheduling it early enough. I think we really do need.
That was the year before. This year we had it in January. Yeah.
Which is still late. We're trying to have it in January.
I liked the way that we did it last time with the doodle poll, but we need to kind of decide roughly like when we want to do it. Do we want to do it on a Saturday like we did? Do we want to try to do it in an evening?
Yeah.
I mean, I think Saturday worked well. So it's hard to find a Saturday when we're all available. So if we start thinking about it now, I think that's a good idea to think about it earlier.
And we can also consider splitting it into two 2-hour retreats.
Yeah. Okay. I feel like it's a little early to start to think about when we have time in January available. Maybe we'll talk about that.
We only have 3 meetings between now and January.
Yeah. We don't actually need to schedule this at a meeting.
No,
I mean, we
need to discuss what we want to do.
So Michelle.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, I brought up at the last meeting my concern to have a. I went to the Pacifica beach cleanup, and I met someone that is really full of information on how to reduce plastic use, and just an expert on this topic. And so I think that our community would really like to listen and hear what she has to say. It's my understanding that she has already presented to Half Moon Bay, the city of Half Moon Bay, and the city of Pacifica, and she's very interested in presenting to the Midcoast. So you know, that's something that I'd like to tentatively set for November 10th.
Okay. Why don't you reach out to her and see if that date would work for her?
As far as I know, it
And
works. Yes. I just wanted to, yeah, I will confirm that.
okay, and like what the length? you know,
Half hour, 15 minutes Q&A. So total 45 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's an important topic.
Very important. Very important.
Yeah, obviously, I think we all care about that. I just want to make effective use of our time, and you know, if if maybe some of that content is available for us to consume before, without taking that much time in a meeting.
Well, I think that in order to do things right, you need to have I think a half hour, 30 minutes is the Q&A may be less, but I think that there should be some time. We should expect and allow for a little bit of time for question and answer. But she has indicated to me that 30-minute presentation is reasonable, and I agree.
Okay.
We don't want to rush something like that. Do it right, the first time.
Okay, I hear you. Does anyone else have any items for either of the next two meetings? Okay, we can always talk offline about that too. I know it's getting late, although earlier than normal. If we don't have anything else to discuss, then we can go ahead and move to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move we adjourn the meeting.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second,
All right. Dave, please call the roll.
Dan,
Yes.
Len,
yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Jill,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
and I'm yes. We are adjourned. Thank you all.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Gotta go feed the cat.
Good night, everyone.